Michelle Gora, James, Stephanie, I'm here. Mike, Julie is absent, Jen is absent, and Peter.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to add to item 11A on the agenda um, an addition of one textbook to UConn ECE economics course text.
If I don't do this agenda item, doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But today, we have to recognize it is some of our board members' last board meeting together. And so it is one in which we want to recognize Anthony Amato, Alan Brown, Michelle Gora, and Stephanie Kolnick for their efforts as board members. And I cannot group you all because I think that each one of you individually has done such amazing things for us. So I know that we have a chair that is coming to Alan, Michelle, and a rocking chair going to Stephanie because she is going to be rocking that baby. And on that chair, it indicates your name and your years of service. And a chair is truly insignificant in comparison to the efforts that you have given our district and the time that you've done. Michelle Gora has the title of being Miss Board. I think that's what you call her, right, Pete? Is there is nothing that she's not at and always seeking to do more, looking for information, CAPE conferences, and policies, and making certain that every I is dotted and T is crossed. And we are going to miss your ever presence on understanding finance and telling us what the budget actually means and, and being able to translate. And so we know our children are forever better because of your efforts. Alan, we are going to miss your humor. We're going to miss your readings. We're also going to miss the fact that you challenge us in the most wonderful way. You ask us to dig deeper. You ask us to look harder. And each time you sat there and you said to me that the reason that it was okay that you didn't run again was that your kids didn't really think it was that cool. And I'm going to tell you, we all thought you were really cool. So I think that when we look at what you've done for our district and how you've moved us forward, how you've made certain that Bridgewater had a voice, and we are grateful for that. Stephanie, I think we can forgive you for going. But I have to tell you, you took on some hero duties on this one. You took on the finance committee. We then even put an additional challenge by putting a new finance director in. So we like a challenge, and to know that you were right there, shoulder to shoulder with everything that was going on. There was never a time that you didn't drop everything in order to come help us. Even making certain you had a friend in tow. I don't know what I'm going to do without him during some of our meetings. I'll have peace and quiet. But to know that I look at everything that has happened and what you've done for us and how you've carried us forward, and your quiet nature, looking to always have compromise and seeking resolution, has always been appreciated. And Anthony Amato, who is not here today, he is off, he's in Paris, so don't feel too bad for him. But I think when I was first interviewed, I called, he said to me, my last question in my first interview, he said that he was the caboose, the last question. And I think anybody who knows Anthony Amato knows there is nothing caboose about that man. He is full engine. And he has driven us further. He has done more to push things forward and to make certain that there was nothing left behind, and we didn't consider every alternative, where the costs was, why did I have a decimal point there? but he was always looking at what was the greater good. And so as we have a chance to recognize our 4 people who are leaving us, please know you have made us all better on this board. And we thank you for your service. So the chairs will be coming delivered to your house. So rather than making this where we have to shuffle around, we're going to service with a smile since you've always done it for us. So now, and at this time, Michelle, I'll turn it over to you.
I know. All right, the next agenda item is public comment on agenda items. Anybody? No? Okay, no public. Would anyone like to pull anything off the consent agenda? No? All right. So hearing none, that passes. Next up is reports. And since the first report is the board chair's report, and since I get to sit in that seat tonight, I'm just going to take a minute to thank our administration for just an amazing end to the year for all of our schools, whether it was Aloha Days or the just spectacular graduation up at Chippewa. Town Hall, but for Chippewa. It was just beautiful, and so I can't thank everyone enough for that, for the work that goes into the end of the year. And I also, as I sort of have been reflecting on my time on the board, there was a theme that came through the Chippewa graduation that I was so proud of us as a board, because all of the student speakers really spoke about the Chippewa family and how they felt supported, how they felt the kindness, how they worked together with their teachers, with their peers, and that's a culture that I feel that is started at the board level, and that's something that I'm really proud of all of us for doing, because it's easy to get lost in the numbers. It's easy to get lost in looking at achievement scores and to forget how important it is that we keep that culture of support and family in our schools. And I know we've seen evidence of that when we got all of those new agri-science students to sign on when we didn't have a building built, and all they could do is come and see what we had, and they wanted to sign on to that. So I'm proud of that. That something that we've all built, and that really came through on Saturday. So that's all I have to report. Anything else?
Okay. Well, I'm going to echo some of the things that Michelle had shared, but I did want to also follow up to let you know, originally we had planned our seniors to do a walkthrough through the elementary schools, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to make that all come together, and we didn't want to leave one school out and not get to another. So Kim Gallo has very much championed the idea that starting in September, she's going to coordinate the schedule so that way we can go forward with it, because I think it's another thing that shows togetherness of our district, that shows that our seniors don't forget where they came from, and we unify and we raise them up, because we also know they are role models for our youngest students. So we will be looking to do that. Graduations were absolutely wonderful. From the Aloha ceremonies, that watching the students perform, have their voice even as 5th graders, and it really was wonderful to watch the families come together and celebrate their children before they go off to Chippewa. The 8th grade graduation, and thank you to Alicia Roush for speaking and handing out diplomas, or not diplomas, for our certificates for that. And then to our senior graduation, and Michelle, thank you for saying those words, and also being the person who would do the take and shake, so I could just shake people's hands. But really, I think what we heard was the graduation site was so publicly beautiful. It was really having everyone stop and watch our students. They felt special. Watching businesses that stopped to come out to celebrate what our students had done. It really was a testament to the community and what happened. Mother Nature was very kind to us, gave us an absolutely outstanding day. And in as much as it looked seamless, it looked wonderful, there was a lot of work behind that. And so we have to thank Mark Lyon for being willing to take on the idea that our seniors brought to Kim. Trooper Costello for organizing all of the troopers, making certain that safety was still paramount through the entire event. Pam at All Star, who made certain that the buses were running and nobody was going to show up angry at us. That was very important. Rich Iniamo and Rocky for their coordination, including Mr. Wright, who Daryl Wright made certain that we had our fire police volunteers with us. So Don O'Leary pulling together all of the seats over there, having our custodians go to place, but really Kim and Lori for their efforts to make certain that every detail was intact. And it was one of those where it looked seamless, it looked beautiful. I don't want to tell you what happened in the background to make it look seamless and beautiful, but we appreciate all of those efforts because really you showcased our students beautifully. The other thing that I have to acknowledge, and I don't know that Michelle knows she got this, the CABE has sent you yet another certificate. This is a leading by example, and it was the work that you did with our high schoolers. And so this is in recognition of your support. So thank you for that. All right, and we have some things that are going on. I don't know if you all notice, if you look behind our screens over there, you will see Ben Allen. Ben Allen is our new media assistant, and you talk about throwing somebody into a new job. His first task was to videotape graduation. No pressure. And not only did he show up, he said, "Can I use my own equipment?" And nothing made me happier than to say yes to that. But I will tell you, I cannot wait for his video because he already showed me. He's covered transitions. He's putting titles on it. So we will have our graduation up on YouTube thanks to Ben. So already off to a great start. So thank you very much, Ben. Additionally, we were able to, yes. And we are able to start the new year with a new field hockey coach. So we have Samantha Scavo, who will be joining us. And so we're already getting in line to start our next school year. We do have a resignation of Jacob Bartfield, the music teacher at Booth Free. I apologize, it does say Burnham on the, but he is out of Booth Free, and he is a 0.4 FTE. So we wish Jacob in the best, but instead of working 2 days, he's going to work all 5 somewhere else. So we wish him all of the best.
Megan, was that for high school field hockey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Yeah. It's a tiny report, so it's okay. Saying that we haven't met since May 23rd. But yeah, my last treasurer's report, and somehow I made it to the end of the year, and I'm still reporting. It's very exciting. Just like quickly, I'll say that being on the finance committee doesn't feel or sound very glamorous most of the time, and it was a little daunting to take on the position as treasurer this year. But I can say that I have learned so much from being on this committee over the past couple of years, and I hope that other people will consider, since we're losing 2 spots on the committee, it's you learn unimaginable things about each individual administrator and their what they're covering, and down to the nitty-gritty details. And it's been a real eye-opener, and I've really enjoyed working with everyone, all the administrators that have come in to talk to us, and with Nicole, who's been an unbelievable addition to the team this year. So
so excited you're here, and I'm so glad you're carrying the torch forward because it couldn't be in more capable hands. So in this packet, I don't think we had the financial summary because it was in last packets, and I didn't have the opportunity to report last meeting. But bottom line, we're tracking at about 5.59%, or at least that's where we were at the end of May. Our next finance committee meeting is on the 27th, next week. So we're at a good place for the year. The 3 accounts or the 3 fund lines that we've continued to track, if you've been looking at those summary sheets, we have an eye on, and again, the ones that would pop out to you would be the 100 series, the 400 series, and the 800 series. Again, the one that looks the most upside down is the 800 series, and that's due to that the 1% fund transfer that we did. So if anybody has any questions, if you take a look at those, I think it's been a great addition that Nicole has added to our board packet every month. It's a really quick and easy way for everyone to get an overall glance of what's happening in each of the funds. But yeah, I guess there was only one other thing I was going to ask Nicole to update us on. We talked about in our last meeting about the implementation of positive pay, which I think is an interesting thing, even just for your personal finances.
So I shared with the Finance Committee that I'm in the process of implementing positive pay for the district's bank accounts. What that is it's a way for us to ensure that checks that are being processed through our various accounts are checks that we actually wrote to prevent against bank fraud. We did have a minor incident of bank fraud, which prompted me to look into different alternatives. So what will happen is every time my office produces checks, we will upload through a secure link to Webster Bank an Excel spreadsheet of those checks. And as they go through Webster's processing, Webster will match those to the Excel spreadsheet that we uploaded. So if a check comes through that we have not specifically uploaded the Excel spreadsheet, they will contact us to ask us if that is a check that we want processed and is being processed officially through our accounts and not on the basis of fraud.
Yeah, I think it's happened in people's personal finances as well. I think we talked about how with the rise of people being able to like take a picture and deposit checks, that, what do you do with that afterwards? And how do we talk to our staff about what they do with those type of checks afterwards? And, just more technology getting ahead of us. But I thought that was an interesting thing, and I'm glad you were on top of that, and that we had some kind of resolution that the banks could work with us on. So, but that hasn't been approved yet, or that hasn't totally gone through yet, right?
It's actually been set up on the bank's end, and I'm having my staff trained at the end of this week.
Okay, great. So yeah, so that is the finance report for last month. Again, we're meeting again next week, but I guess somebody else will be reporting on that at the next board meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, over to AgriScience.
I will tell you, AgriScience has kept us busy. On June 11th, I did put into the board packet, and I apologize, I don't want to present it right now because it would throw off our end of the year slideshow. So if you would refer into the board packet, you will see the PowerPoint slide that we have for our overall program status. And what you're going to see is that at this point, we met with FF&E with DAS on June 11th. And they are now working with us for the full $1.6 million for our FF&E for AgriScience. So at this point, they recognize that we can't meet the criteria of the 20-year threshold they had for FF&E through DAS lenses. We were able to explain to them, though, the original request was going to be a grant through the Department of Education. And so they recognized that when they folded it in, they gave us some standards that we really couldn't have. And because we're starting up a program, they are now working with us and giving us some leniency. So we are continuing to work, but I have to say it was a very positive meeting. It's one in which we now know how to go forward with the purchasing. We have a clear plan. So to say that it was a success at this point. So we're hedging closer to making certain that everything is signed off, and that's what we're waiting for, is that final signed off approval. So, yes.
Is the I know the last time you had updated us, Megan, there was still a pretty good amount of monies that they hadn't approved yet. Where have they narrowed it at all, or is it still basically the same as it was last time you reported?
Nope, we are much more to our positive. The only give that we said was we don't need a bus. We'll continue to work with All Star because, quite frankly, maintaining a bus can be challenging into itself. So at that point, if that was our give, and they're willing to work with us on all of the other equipment, we're in a very good place right now. So to say we're feeling very positive about that. We do have the signed MOU for the teacher contract, so that was able to go forward. First, we've also had a conversation with New Milford. They had adjusted their signed contract. They're still looking for the 20. However, they also recognize that depending on what the district requirement is, they may be willing to work with us to alter their numbers. So in the event the state makes a decision to pick up more of the cost and put less of a burden on the sending districts, New Milford is certainly willing to work with us. So we have had that conversation and they've signed off on that.
I can't remember what their 3-year average was. What were we looking for as a yield from New Milford?
So they, in our business model that we did 20, and that's where they are with us, is 20. So there wasn't a going back. We are at 20. They stayed within that. We were looking to have the conversation. Maybe do you want to do 1 or 2 more? Where and taking a look at the average. They had a slight decline in enrollment last year, so they held to the 20. And so again, I didn't want to make certain that we are so cemented that if logistics change and what they acknowledge that it is a budgetary decision at this point, and if things are lessened, they are more than happy to work with us for increased enrollment. So,
just another question too, Megan. And since we've only done this once, we don't have a large experience pool to look to. But I'm wondering if you've had conversations with other superintendents of agri-science programs. What happens if we do either very closely approach the cap or go over? In other words, let's say there were 21 students who you would love to have from New Milford come to Chippewa. What's the protocol for that, and how would that work?
We can admit all the students we want, but New Milford doesn't have to pay for the students. So it is one in which we recognize their obligation is to pay for 20. So that's where that sits.
The only thing I did here, and this was back when we were negotiating with Danbury, if you remember, to raise their cap. I know that I think it was the superintendent, Pascarella.
Yep, Sal. Mm-hmm.
He had said that it's politically very difficult for a superintendent to say to a student. There we go. It's politically very difficult for a superintendent to say to a student, "No, we're not going to let you go to an agri-science program." I guess it would be as difficult for the superintendent to say that of a magnet program or any other kind of program. So I'm wondering, is that something that the cap is soft, or is the cap hard? It sounds like from your perspective right now, the cap is a hard cap, that there's absolutely no way that any sending district would ever break that cap, even if they had a parent and a student pleading to come, that they would say, "Nope, sorry, this is what we've negotiated. Sorry."
I mean, we obviously will talk to anybody as far as pleading a case, but we also have to recognize that, we're trying to have good business relationships with our sending districts. And that's where trying to find that balance of where do you sour that relationship? You know, they have made a decision to come to Chippewa. Right now, they are incurring a cost of 2 buses because they have to graduate their students to Nanawag and Chippewa. So this is one in which we're also trying to make certain we continue to have a working relationship.
That sounds like a delicate balance.
Yes, it is. Yes. So to the good news is that our finance has turned green, and it turned green because the science portal is up and running, and Nicole continues to be on top of putting in all of the payments, and the state has been very good about filtering everything through, working with us. So at this point, we can say that is going smoothly. The building is in yellow. Again, you were already told of the delay with the metal building. There's been no change in status. However, I don't want to change color when we know that that's something we're continuing to watch. And additionally, marketing, you all were able to see the flyer that we had shared for our agri-science. I appreciate the feedback that we've received, and we're making some of these adjustments. You know, even noticing if we didn't have the right ECE classes, we have new things coming, and making certain that we are putting us in the best spotlight for people who are interested in coming. Because again, it's not just selling our agri-science, it's selling Chippewa. So that's where we sit with that. The second page, and this is one in which I do want to share, because we have had some play in our enrollment numbers and things that have happened. However, it really hasn't changed us, which is phew. But for example, one of our students moved from New Milford to Sherman. So Sherman increased, New Milford decreased. We had a student drop in New Fairfield, but we had an increase in a Brookfield student. So there were things that as they've played themselves out and gone, it's really had us at a neutral place. So we're still looking good going into the year with the same numbers that we have been projecting thus far. But I did want to let you know, if anyone wants to see the breakdown, the numbers have shifted within the sending towns, but our bottom line number remains the same.
All right, Greg, do you have anything to report on the building?
Sure. First off, I want to say that this was a really difficult last couple of weeks in terms of Megan having a lot on her plate that she had to deal with in the school system, the close of the year, the construction project that's going on, and all those things. And yet, it was an example, a classic example of keeping your eye on the ball, because she did so well with the state DAS in terms of making sure we got our FF&E money. That is where you need to be. You've got to handle a million things, but you've got to focus on the one that really is going to have an economic impact on the district. And that was a beautiful piece of work, and I want to thank Megan for that. And of course, it is very good that Nicole Evergreen Grant has been getting the money from the state, because this coming week, next week, we will for the first time approve a payment to O&G of $2 million in a given month. So we are moving, the project is moving along. As you've seen, the steel is up, the roof tracking is up there on the A building. The F building, which is the large animal building, you know, if you thought it looked big when you were out there, you should see it now that a lot of the foundation is in. I mean, that building is gigantic, and they're continue to be digging and pouring, and we hope to have that foundation ready to go soon, because the metal will be coming in July, and we hope to be able to get that building erected as quickly as possible. The greenhouse is going up this week. The materials for it have been on site for a while now, and they've been sorting them and moving them from place to place. And now they're going to start erecting that, putting them together and bringing it in for erection. It should happen this week. And we continue to move on all fronts. Tomorrow is the first day that this building will be free of students. And I guarantee you that they will start, you will see machines come pulling up and start breaking up the entire front area and parking lot. They will start on doing demolition on the science lab, on the chemistry lab, and the workspace next to it. And that project will start. And we will, continue to make progress on getting this done. The site will start to, over the course of the summer, probably by July, you'll notice major differences at the site, because when they turn it over to us in August, They will have completed a good deal of the site work, with the exception of planting of trees, and I believe the lawn, the planting of grass will go in September, and because they don't want to do it in August, it'll die. And you will see a dramatic change to the site. This whole area on the north side, they're going to be moving the construction further back into the site. Pretty soon it'll only be around F building. By the end of the summer, it will only be construction at F building, and this end of the building will be finished, more or less. The parking lots will be in, and you'll see a different school. And there's going to be an awful lot of work done over the next 2 months, as O&G is absolutely on fire. And so if you have any desire to come up and see anything or play around, let me know, and we'll get you in over the summer. But I think you'll see when you come back next fall, it'll be a different place.
Yes, Michael.
I'm just wondering, is there a ribbon cutting ceremony planned? Do you have a date yet, or is that still something you're going to be working on over the summer?
I don't know that we want to have a ribbon cutting over at the half of it being done, or I think it may be when it's done in its totality, which we would be looking at December for the complete totality. We are working on having Johanna Hayes come and do our opening speech for our students, and she has been a champion, and that we get to thank Mary Weber for. She's pushing for all those things, but it'd be a wonderful thing to have somebody who comes in and shares with our students that, look, they are really on the forefront of what is going to be the next steps in education and agri-science.
That's exciting. Any other questions? All right. Financial status, Nicole?
I'll just elaborate a little more on what Greg and Megan have said. Last week, we issued all payments through April 30th to all of our contractors. We will be presenting the O&G's payment application 11, which is for work through May 31st. Will be presented at our next building committee meeting on Monday for approval. We did receive our most recent state payment of $2.7 million this morning. The Science Lab portal was not only opened, our payment was in, has been approved, and we're awaiting receipt of those funds. And everything that we have to date has been submitted to the state. We will be putting the May 31st application into the state on July 1 when the new fiscal year opens.
Thank you. Are there any questions? That sounds great. And then the flow is still good, the ins and the outs? All right. All right. That's good. All right. So now we're going to move on to one of my favorite I think agenda items each year, the state of our schools, where we hear from our administrators. Yep.
Hi, everybody. Is this on? Doesn't sound. Is it? Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you all for allowing the administration to share tonight. And I also want to thank the board members for all they do for our region and your commitment to our boys and girls. So thank you very much. So the superintendent, Mrs. Bennett, asked us to share something we're proud of that happened this year, something that we can highlight. And I'm incredibly proud of two things. The first is I want to give you an update on our multi-grade configuration at Burnham School, because we have put such hard work into that, and we are so proud of where we are. And the second one for Booth 3 is cultivating kindness. So we have our new tree, so I'll be talking about that, and it's beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to start with Burnham School. So it's been a real amazing journey. I want to recognize and thank my teacher teams for their tremendous efforts and the many accomplishments they have had for the past 2 years. I'm also proud of how my teacher teams have continued to develop into strong partnerships, and it is evident in their work together, as it is very powerful. I'm also proud of our students' academic achievements. They are truly shining stars. To date, we have doubled in numbers in our second year, peaking at, we should be coming in at about 60 students. That may sound small, but I have to tell you, when we were down to about 30 students, I'm proud of the fact that we have 60. 17 of them are tuition students. We have become a showcase for visitors from our own state as well as Massachusetts. We have hosted visits from educators from Cambridge, Mass., and from a few small school districts in the eastern part of Connecticut. In thinking about this update, I wanted to honor my teams by sharing their reflection. So the K through 2 teachers said the following, that students have made tremendous growth and progress. It is exciting to have many of the same students again to pick up where they left off, resulting in little time lost at the beginning of each school year. The older students are excited to become leaders for their new kindergarten friends. The K2 team seamlessly works together, which is essential for programming and reaching its fullest potential as a unique collaborative learning environment. The program provides priceless opportunities for sharing of social and academic strengths across the K2 grade levels. There is an extraordinary sense of community as well as family. And without limitations of grade level, it promotes flexibility, individuality, and a balance during the K2 stage of child development. The 3 through 5th grade teachers said the following, that they too have seen tremendous growth and progress. There are many more opportunities for children to work and develop at their own level on a continuous basis. Flexibility of grouping is beyond the normal range of ages, and abilities can benefit those students who are working below or above grade level in certain skills. They have engaged in multi-grade math, reading, writing, again each year and again this year. Students are continuously exposed to reteaching as they listen in on and benefit from lessons given to younger students. This review of basics reinforces and clarifies the student's understanding, even when they may be working on something that's much more advanced. Students are also exposed to pre-teaching, and we kind of chuckle because we call it eavesdropping on the teacher's lessons and discussions with older students. This both prepares and stimulates the younger child's thinking. So our social environment, the learning and the social atmosphere is cooperative rather than competitive. Pro-social behaviors and expectations are modeled by the older students. The teacher plays a key role in modeling and intentionally teaching these skills, but in multi-grade classrooms, many models are available for younger students. Older students have opportunities to genuinely help younger students learn. Their teaching helps them clarify their own learning, and the cognitive development and self-esteem of both younger and older students has improved. Multi-grade classrooms are less homogeneous than single-grade classrooms. Therefore, differences are the norm and more easily accepted. Children who are academically advanced can easily take part in higher level skills while maintaining interactions with their peers. All children are expected to work independently at different times during the day. They receive more intentional training to be independent workers. Off-task behaviors diminish as self-discipline and accountability increases. Lengthier time with the same teachers can increase trust, understanding of expectations, and positive relationships between teacher and students and teachers and parents. Teachers will be able to continue to build upon their knowledge of each child's interests, strengths, and needs over the multiple years that they teach a child. Often, especially the high-need students, it takes more than 1 year for a teacher to see the results of his or her efforts. Having the same child for a number of years allows the team to reap and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Good for teacher morale, good for student success. Lastly, the stability of having the same teachers for a number of years can increase emotional security. Although our work is really never done, We continue to reflect and enhance on our programming, and we are also mindful of looking for ways to create pathways to Chapag's Ag STEM programming. This year, our students continued with their community garden, planting a variety of items, including barrel potatoes, which will be part of our farm-to-table lunch program. We look forward to tons of mashed potatoes when students return for the 2019-2020 school year. The Roxbury Bridgewater Garden Club partnership has enhanced our knowledge and skill of gardening and composting and will join us when we celebrate our harvest. Many of our families have also been quite supportive in our gardening program as well as local constituents. We hope that we will be recognized not only for our multi-grade experience, but also as a strong feeder to Chapag. So we hope you stop by and get to see our garden. There's lots of things they're starting to pick. And we often invite our families as they come and help us during the summer to also harvest whatever is there. So community can come and pick whatever has been harvested. Just harvested some radishes, so lots of folks went home today with lots of radishes. So our lettuce will be ready any day now. But we're proud of the work that we've done. Our students are really shining and working hard. It's seamless. Our first year was a little more difficult, only because some kids had never experienced multi-grade. But now that all of them have, it's just a natural transition from one level to the next. So it's exciting. Any questions about Burnham? Yep.
Just a quick question. I know so much of the success is set in now because you have staff that have been through this more than 1 year. What do you foresee? Nobody is going to stay forever, and you're going to have to replace retiring or moving teachers at some point. What do you foresee as the ramp up for bringing someone into a novel experience like this as a teacher? Or is there enough of a hotbed out there of teachers who actually have experience or at least training in multi-age?
I don't know that there's a lot of teachers out there that have had training in multi-grade. But the one thing that I think is critically important is that anyone that teams with someone, they have to really work well together. So as far as retiring, I'm hoping no one retires for a while. The second thing is, we would go through the interview process. And so my team of teachers would be a part of that so they can get a feel for someone's personality and be able to work well with a group of folks. So, paraprofessionals may come and go. I mean, we have a team of 4 at each level, and so we may end up replacing 1 or 2 of them, but part of the community, the adults in that community would be part of the interviewing process.
I was just wondering, I think you sort of figured out, especially for the social studies curriculum, how they're in some times they will all do the same thing, and how is that working and progressing? And have you found a challenge when somebody new comes to the district if they've?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
So some of those subject areas are on a 3-year cycle. So we can certainly fill in any missed information. So we run that 3-year cycle and just continue to work through that. Same thing with our field trips. We don't go on the same field trips that all the other students in the district do because there were too many of them. So except for 5th grade, we make sure the 5th grade participates in all of those transition things. But for the most part, we looked at a 3-year plan to say, okay, year 1, we're focusing on particular topics maybe in science and social studies, and so that year the field trip would pertain to that, and the following year would be a different one. But they end up doing the same things that all of the district children do. It's just in a different format.
Right.
So yeah, and we keep refining it. Our work is never done. It's things that we have to keep revisiting. What worked, what didn't work, what else can we do? How can we enhance things? So,
Thank you.
sure.
Michael?
Kathy, first I just wanted to thank you and your entire staff for all the hard work you put in this year. And you ended strong, it sounds like, so that's a great way to end the year. Two questions. One, I thought at one point you were talking to the board about the fact that you've had such success at Burnham with this multi-age, multi-grade model that you were hoping to roll that out to Booth. Is that going to be this coming year? Would it be in the future? Where are we with that?
So Mrs. Bennett and I will be looking at Booth Free School, and we'll be looking at possibly, this will be our planning year to see if we can move forward with Booth Free with multi-grade the following year, not this coming year.
Right. The one.
Yeah. So, you know, there's different configurations, so we really have to look at it and play with it and see how we can work that through.
The other question I had is I know that at least the ornamental garden in the back was the Friendship Garden was done with the cooperation, I think, of the Roxbury Bridgewater Garden Club.
That's
Are you partnering with them as well for the vegetable garden, or is that something that you're doing solely in-house?
We began that garden with in-house. So last year, the students in grades 3, 4, and 5 were challenged to create a garden. So they had to do the research, they had to find the costs, they had to do the layout, I mean, the whole 9 yards. So each year I do a big project with the Roxbury Bridgewater Garden Club. And so last summer I said to them, because Roxbury also has their community garden, I really wanted the focus to be on that garden. And so that's what they did. They taught the kids how to plant certain things, how to make bamboo, tripods, and they put in some beans and peas and those kinds of things. And we wanted to do barrel potatoes. So, so the focus was on that. And I'll be working with them this summer. We're going to continue with some more work there, as well as for my Roxbury board members. We're also going to be looking at Joey's trail. Yeah. So we'll be bringing in some folks to do that too, which is really great. It's a beautiful trail.
I love that idea. I think the more you can involve the community,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly when we're talking about multi-age, multi-grade, we're talking K-5, but I think, you know, the more we can involve our community members to make our schools truly the heart of our respective
Mm-hmm.
communities is just a wonderful thing. And I'm sure the senior centers in both towns would love even more opportunities to work with with our students.
Yeah, I agree. And we do a lot with the communities in both towns. So yes, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Just a random question, since you mentioned that the enrollment's gone up to about 60 students for next year. I know even though we had some great successes at Burnham and they had like good test scores, we were uneligible for, what was it, like the School of Excellence or the Blue? Remind me what it was.
Distinction.
Oh, that's so. Does that mean next year will we be eligible because the enrollment's increased to enough, or are we still like under a cap?
It depends upon how many students are in grades 3 through 5, and probably not.
Okay. Unfortunately, yeah.
So I have more students, which is fine, in the lower grades because those will become feeders to 3 through 5. Every time someone registers, I go, oh, please let it be a third grader.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been the case, although we do have a couple of new students in the upper grades.
Are there other
So-
recognitions that we could like?
Excuse me?
Are there other types of recognitions, like if we don't get, since we can't meet the criteria for that just solely based on enrollment, are there other things that we can look to?
We can do that in-house.
Yeah.
We're always proud of our
Of
test
course,
scores,
yeah.
and
And
the
you had
students
good
did well.
success, but
Yeah, they did. So that's unfortunate. So I'm going to move on to Booth because I'm incredibly proud of our Ben's Bells tree, and talk about getting the community involved. The whole community was involved in this, and it was just so exciting. So in addition to our very strong focus this year on academic performance, Booth Free School has committed to and is spreading kindness. This has been visually demonstrated in the installation of our Be Kind tree mural. Kind Campus, a concept that Ben's Bell's Kindness Education Program is an inspiring outreach program that strives to educate students, families, faculty, and staff about the benefits of kindness. Ben's Bell's kindness education programs are based on the belief that everyone has capacity to be kind and that kindness can be cultivated through intentional practice. Kindness is a universal topic with opportunities to educate, recognize, and celebrate in a variety of venues, including in our schools, our neighborhoods, and communities. Through carefully planned activities, the students have been learning about what kindness means, developing kindness within themselves, reflecting on gratitude for kindness, and spreading and celebrating kindness within our classrooms, our school, and our community. Spreading kindness has not been limited to Booth Free School, but throughout the entire community of Roxbury. During this school year, fundraising efforts have been implemented to install a permanent kindness tree mural within our school building. With the help of Roxbury's first selectman, Barbara Henry, a generous donation from the Union Savings Bank was given. In addition, we recognized Booth Free PTO and the Roxbury Chippewa Women's Club for their generous donations. With these donations and other efforts, a beautiful Be Kind tree mural was installed the last week of May. This entire mural process had been truly a community building experience. The Ben's Bells Be Kind mural was created by students, staff, and community members. The brightly colored public art piece symbolizes community connection and support through kindness. Our beautiful mural is made of ceramic tiles, some handmade by school and local community members. The installation took just 2 days to complete with all hands on deck, sharing the creation of this amazing Be Kind tree mural. The bright green Be Kind tree mural will serve as a great visual reminder to be kind while adding beauty to our school campus. The beauty it will share with our Roxbury community and our school will be a reminder of how special and lucky we are to live in such a supportive and caring environment. As we return to school for the 2019-2020 school year, we will have a kickoff assembly featuring Jeanette Marr, the founder and chief kindness officer of Ben's Bells Project. Her topic will be Your Kind Mind, Emotional Intelligence, which focuses on how emotional awareness is foundational for the empathy and compassion that leads to kindness. Our school community looks forward to meeting Jeanette and to continue with strengthening our Kind Campus initiative. Now I have to say, folks and a lot of the seniors keep coming to visit. They want their picture taken in front of the mural, and it's just heartwarming. It really is. And we invite them in all the time, but one tells another, and then before you know it, they're taking pictures of each other in front of it. The other thing that I love is, and please stop by to see it. The tree has lots of little things built in it. So every time the kids go by, they're looking for their own piece that they had created, or they're looking at birds in nests, or they're looking at just the Roxy Star. So it symbolizes a lot, and it's really absolutely beautiful. It's in our big hallway where we have two great big windows that shine beautifully. And Don O'Leary's going to install light above it, so at night we can shine the light on it. So it's beautiful. I invite you all to come see it.
I just wanted to say there was a picture of it in the Region in Review that came out, and it is just beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I want to go see it in person because I want to read all the little things.
Yeah, just come see it. There's beautiful sayings in it also, and it's always questioning our community, what we're doing about maintaining a kind campus. So it's beautiful. Yeah.
Kathy, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about Burnham, and I just wanted to say we really handed you a significant challenge there, between the community and the board and everything else. And you and your staff and your students and your parents have really hit it out of the park. I think what's happened there has been an astounding success, and you should be very, very proud of your people. I think that's just wonderful. And I'm glad to see that this may come a little bit to Booth in the near future. But what can you give us some indication of what kind of academic things are going on at Booth and what kind of triumphs you have to report to us this year?
At Booth?
At Booth, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, our students are working really hard. We're looking at the configurations. We've really focused on academics and feel very confident that it'll show in the amount of work. A lot of teacher meetings, a lot of reviewing of assessments, a lot of strategies throughout the school year. So they've been working really, really hard. Sure. Lisa?
Do you have the enrollment numbers for kindergarten this year?
Oh, I didn't bring them with me. I want to say, Megan, do you happen to have them? I do have.
We'll only open up what is this until we roll over.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it 5? Is it more
Oh,
than
at
5?
At Booth, are you talking about?
Yes.
We just registered a few more, so I think it's around 7 or 8
Okay.
at the moment, and sometimes we get them in the summer too.
Okay. And how many 5th graders did you graduate?
Around 15, so they're
Okay.
going to be going.
So there's, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Last question too. I think the last time we as a board were at Booth, you were doing quite a bit of planned site work, particularly for the making the playground, I think, ADA compliant. Some of the pathways I think you were configuring.
Yes.
Can you just give us a quick update on how that all turned out?
Oh, it turned out well. We have a student that's in a wheelchair, so we needed to put some ramps to go down. So there's a ramp that winds around, if you know where the portables are, winds around, and the student is able to go down on that path all the way down to the playscape. So it works out well. And our students like to go with her. I mean, you know, it's a nice little walkway that leads down to the playscape. Good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you one of these.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, I'm fundraising.
Oh.
We're burning school to do a Ben's Bell tree or some kind of mural. We raised so far $1,000. Need a few more to come our way. So feel free. Thank you.
Ready? Yes.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here to talk a little bit about Washington Primary School. I selected a few highlights to share with you that support some of our initiatives this year. So the first one is in mathematics. So in math, teachers in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades worked as a team to support the math practice standards, making sense of problems and persevering when solving them, and modeling with mathematics. Teachers introduced a problem-solving process based on the work of George Palya, a mathematician. The process included 4 steps with guiding prompts and questions for the students to consider. The 4 steps included read to understand, plan, solve, and check. Each step was explained and explicitly modeled using an organizer with helpful prompts. Over the course of the year, students were able to use this process to guide their problem-solving thinking and to show their work in greater detail. Checking their work offered an opportunity to make corrections and to learn from mistakes. This process made students' thinking and work in mathematics visible to both the teacher and to the student. The second WPS highlight I'd like to share with you tonight focused on the self-directed learning behaviors. A self-directed learner is able to set goals, to develop and persevere through plans, to share and reflect on their learning, and to make adjustments. Throughout the year, teachers integrated the self-directed learning cycle with student assignments and activities. In the classroom, they set weekly social goals with corresponding steps, as well as use the cycle for research projects. In art, students self-selected art activities such as sculpture, painting, or drawing, and used a planning sheet as a guide to set goals, create plans, and make ongoing adjustments based on teacher and peer feedback. Once their work was completed, students used rubrics to self-reflect on the process and the quality of their product. The art show was a great celebration of student efforts and showed diverse and personalized pieces with thoughtful artist statements. In physical education, the self-directed learning cycle was used effectively in grades 4 and 5 to improve fitness habits. Students used personal survey information and data collected from pedometers to set fitness goals. Students generated ways to increase steps at school and at home. With intentional changes, all students were able to increase their average weekly steps. In spring, students engaged in a running club at recess time. Approximately 30 students ran over 10 kilometers each. Lastly, WPS promoted choice learning throughout the year for students to explore personal interests. Exploring interests with purpose is foundational to setting and achieving personal goals. At Washington Primary School, we planned 2 choice opportunities for K-5 students to select personalized learning experiences that were both interesting and supportive of the curriculum. In April, the students celebrated Earth Day with an environmental choice day. Students were able to choose from a variety of workshops to connect personal learning interest with environmental issues. The Housatonic Valley Association presented a session on the health of our rivers using storm drain models to learn about the impact of stormwater runoff. Flanders Nature Center provided a session on the value of composting and zero waste habits, where students explored the job of worms and the necessary elements for successful composting. The Livingston Ripley Waterfowl Conservancy highlighted birds who are endangered or on the brink of extinction and how humans impact their environments. In May, students participated in another choice workshop experience. Students explored photography, cooking, weaving, and knitting, landscape painting, robotics, and 3D printing. Both days were supported by staff, parents, and community partnerships. Student surveys indicated that students deepened their interest and learned new information. Infusing choice activities builds a foundation for students to discover and develop interests that ultimately can lead to lifelong passions that bring satisfaction and purpose to work. Along with these highlights I've shared, we continue to emphasize our social skills through growth mindset, empathy, kindness, and gratitude activities. So those were just a few examples that we're really proud of this year, and I hope that they shed a little insight to what we're doing at Washington Primary School. So any questions that you may have for me?
So in the beginning, you mentioned math, the 3 through 5. Was that something that was on top of your regular curriculum? You were using a mathematician's
right.
method?
So problem solving is embedded in obviously the curriculum. So
Right,
that
right.
part is there. So we enhance sort of that process thinking for the students. We were finding that oftentimes students would see a mathematical problem and would immediately sort of just grab the numbers and just start doing operations. And so we wanted to slow down the thinking process and allow them an opportunity to really explore the meaning in the problem and kind of get a sense of what would be the most reasonable way to solve the problem versus just jumping at numbers and putting in operation. So it was really helpful in slowing down that process.
Great. So I'm just curious, that was 3, 4, 5. Like, was that a team? Was that a professional development? Like, how did you guys come across that method or methodology?
Well, we did a little research, but as a team, we worked together to sort of embed it in a student-friendly way in all 3 grades, kind of going in a gradual sort of complexity. And they meet weekly in PLCs, so that's their opportunity to plan common goals and objectives.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
What's your biggest challenge at primary this year, and what's your biggest accomplishment?
biggest, let's see, I think the biggest accomplishment really is the choice opportunities. We are really promoting opportunities for students to really think about what interests them and set sort of plans and action for them to learn about them in a structured way. So we're really proud of that. And we, did lots of surveys with the students. We gained their input in terms of what they would be interested in. We identified several that we actually think that, thought that we could handle in terms of scheduling and seeking out coaches for. And then they went back and they identified like the first two that they would be most excited about learning. So that to me is really one of our biggest accomplishments. Challenges. Well, I think this year, I would have to say some of the staffing. We've had a little bit of changing in the staffing. Our first grade really had, I think they've had, 4 teachers? So that was a bit of a challenge. But we worked through that, and we have a dynamite teacher right now that's doing a really fabulous job. Yes.
We just, as a board, had a presentation on some of the curriculum changes in terms of math at the lower elementary grades. What you just spoke to us about in terms of problem solving, is that for some of the older elementary students, or is it really part and parcel of some of the reforms and changes you're making?
Right. I think, the one, when I say the steps, they don't seem that complicated. I think if you worked in math, you would say, of course you want to understand the problem. Of course you want to make a plan. I think it's just around the thinking. For example, the first step is like read to understand. So we're asking students to read the problem and think about the problem individually and kind of say to themselves, what do I notice about this problem? What do I wonder about the problem? And then talk about the problem and kind of visualize it and draw it out, and then actually talk maybe to have some discourse with another student. So it's really about the process of it. I think, the changes that we're having in math, these things that I'm talking about are really the math practices, and I think they're going to be embedded throughout the program.
So the two really complement each other.
They do. Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, and to Emily's credit, recognizing sometimes you can really cheapen mathematical problems by making them just purely about computation. And so slowing it down and processing it. And I think you even talked about removing the numerical values within it, so they're really
Right.
just focused on what am I being asked, and getting them to really think about what's happening as they process through that.
One of the first steps, if I can offer, which I think was really a new learning for me, and I think an enhancement, is giving students a math problem, but taking the numbers away. Don't have any numbers in it, and say, so what do you notice about this story? And what do you wonder about? And so what they were growing to do is, well, the story, it's talking about like groups, and it's they'll start kind of making sense of the words, and then they'll say, but we don't know how many groups there are, or we don't know. And then all of a sudden now they start thinking about, okay, we need this, and then the operation is kind of sort of deduced from that kind of thinking. So that was really, I think, a very influential part of this process that I think made a difference for my thinking. And when I see the kids do it, it's really fantastic to see them process that way. Anything else?
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, we've been busy at Chippewa as well, and I'm happy to tell you about that. Just a few things, because if I talk to you about everything we're proud of, we would be here very, very late. I'd like to talk to you about physics first, because I think that's a very important initiative that we've done. I had parents in the other day that wanted to talk about high-level challenges, and they mentioned, and I'm so glad they did, well, we hear that you cut a program, an advanced program in science. And I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And they were talking about that when kids come in, they're no longer skipping a science class, which people perceive to be much more rigorous. Okay, the freshmen would come in and they would skip environmental science and go right to biology. Parents saw this as a much more advanced thing than the physics first. When I began to explain physics first, they were very, very interested in what we had to say because they realized the importance of it. The focus on physics first, 9th grade physics, is on completing scientific type of endeavors. Learning physics concepts by asking questions, designing experiments, analyzing data, and reasoning the way that scientists do. This gave the students the tools to study the laws of motion, as well as the science behind climate change, and to do so in a way that was informed by scientific argumentation. Students also engaged in the engineering process by building, then testing and refining a working model of a windmill. And then starting the high school science sequence with physics provides a foundation for chemistry through motion and interaction of particles, and chemistry, in turn, provides a foundation for students to have a deeper understanding of the life processes in biology. Ask any of your friends who are medical professions how much chemistry informed their practice, and that will tell you how important it is to have a fine understanding of chemistry before you take biology. Look up at these learner outcomes and notice again, as I tell you all the time, that they are across the disciplines. This type of study, this type of discourse that happens in these classrooms informs all of the learner outcomes in all of the subjects, just like it happens in life. I don't know about any of you, but I don't stop to say, I'm going to do English now and then I'll do science next. It's very important in school to teach concepts in a way that goes across those disciplines. And this is a type of thinking that informs all disciplines. O&G Builds, we took advantage of the learning that was available in our building project. A group of about 10 students met during the second half of the year to tour the site, learn about every trade that contributes to our project, and they also took part in a building simulation. I walked down to the trailers. They had Legos out, and they had their own planning grid with all the different trades, and somebody was a manager, and somebody was the building superintendent, and they were placing these trades so that they could work together with each other, so that the plumbers didn't get in the way of the electricians, so on and so forth. They're far better about it than any of us would ever completely understand. The SBS program coordinator, Jim McDonough, Jim did this as part of his internship. I was his mentor for his 092 project, and this was something that he brought to our school as a part of his internship with me. He said about the program, I have to say I was impressed in the later sessions about how the students were asking as much about retirement plans as they were about the day-to-day. What it said, right? That is not something I would have predicted, said Jim. And it showed how the presenters focused on a career in the trades as a route to a very comfortable future and not just a cool job. So our students got a real live look at what it looks like when you get involved in the trades at very different levels. The English department, I wanted to highlight some of the humanities additions because I know that the humanities teachers have worked closely with the board over the last few years to offer more to our students, and we are in very good shape. 612, the ELA standards-based curriculum with all of the Common Core standards being addressed in a balanced and explicit method. Explicit, remember when Lori presented to you at the beginning of the year? These are explicit skills that then inform all of your other work, and you'll hear about that, across the grade levels. It assures that students are exposed in an organized progression to the skills and standards that are reflected in standardized testing. Our outside reading was already in place, independent reading, and what this does is it also melds their students' love of literature and encourages for differentiated reading experiences and encourages reading for challenge and for entertainment. And we have lots of really good readers that understand the importance of good literature and can actually answer this question when I walk into classrooms and ask it. Does anybody know the definition of classic literature? Nobody? Now you're going to remember. When you read a classic piece of literature, every 10 years it will mean something different to you because of how you have grown and changed in your own development. Classic literature informs you differently by the decade. That's a definition. Our kids understand that, which I think is very cool. It's one of those fun facts for nerds that makes me very happy, but I do think it's a very interesting statistic. The following courses are going to be offered as new for next year. We're going to add AP Government. We're going to add UConn ECE economics and UConn ECE Foundations of Western Thought. And then it's not just AP that we're adding to. We want choice for all of our students. It's personalized learning. So the senior electives are going to be, every student is going to pick what they learn in ELA, and it's going to, the electives that they're going to choose between are great books, creative writing, literary science fiction, in conjunction with journalism that we already offer. So our students are going to come through with a program of choice that challenges them, inspires them, whichever way you want to look at it. It's called personalized learning. We now offer the opportunity to earn UConn credit in 6 courses: AP Calc, Modern European History, AP Lit and Comp, AP Language and Comp, Foundations of Western Thought and Economics. And I know some of you are nodding and smiling because you were a part of these conversations, and it's now a reality. We now offer AP courses as follows: 3 in the sciences, 2 math, 4 humanities, 1 fine arts, 2 world language, for a total of 12 AP courses. They're all very well registered, and our students are doing very well in them. And you'll hear more about that in the fall when we actually have scores. What's most important that I wanted to share with you tonight that really was very inspiring to me personally is, as I was up on Wednesday night with our valedictorian, our salutatorian, and our class president. We were all on Google Docs, and I was editing their speeches. First time I read their speeches, I truly had tears in my eyes, because what they said about our school was everything that I dream our school to be. Everything that's part of an educational vision that is very, very important to me. So I thought it was very important to close what I say to you with their words, because they're more powerful than any of ours would be. This is what Chippewa means to our students, as defined by the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and the class president at graduation. Our valedictorian said, "Chippewa is a place where Hannah Arendt is a casual beach read, and the Gettysburg Address echoes down the hallways, where existentialist ethical philosophy is debated." Wow, ethical philosophy is debated in your average, everyday English class. Our class president said, "Failure is nothing to be ashamed of." Sound familiar from up there? Let's face it, we've all done it. What is to be ashamed of, though, is when we fail to try again, when we become content with mediocrity. And our salutatorian, who's known to someone over there somewhere, talked about Chippewa's loving atmosphere. She said, "We have created a family here, and it is hard to leave, but it is the strength of that family and the values that we learned at Chippewa that will carry us forward. We were fortunate enough to have been given a gift of a supportive community here at Chippewa that many other high schools do not have. The resulting confidence has given us a foundation for achievement, and I anticipate many great things in our future. I also have faith that the classes that follow Chippewa's class of 2019 will build on our success." So if we want to celebrate something, that's the thing to celebrate. We will continue to look for continuous improvement and success in our students, and to challenge and inspire them. But most importantly, they get it, and they write it very, very well. So I think we've had a wonderful year in Region 12. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Good?
Do we have any questions? I actually have a question.
Sure.
Sorry. Because I was just trying to process what you said about the choice in the language arts.
Mm-hmm.
With the you named 4. Did you say those were all going to be in the senior year?
You won't take all of them.
No.
Right.
We have enough.
You will choose 2 of them. They are semester courses.
Oh, it's semester.
So they will choose 2 of them to take.
Okay, and those
an
are on
AP
top
class.
of the AP.
If they
That
want to
just
take,
seems like a lot. Do we have enough? Do we have enough students for that?
we have, the schedule is more than complete in that regard. And yes, we do have kids to take the courses. But remember that the kids who take the electives, those 4 semester courses, most of them won't take AP courses.
Right. Well, you can't.
Right. Well, you could.
Well,
double
I
up
guess
on,
you could
some
if
will
you-
double up on English. That
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
But by and large, therefore, students who choose not to take AP, for them to have inspiring courses that challenge them and are individualized and
fabulous.
personalized.
Okay, I get it now.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to follow up, I applaud you for your thinking there. I mean, you certainly exhausted us with talking about all the changes that have been happening the last few years on the AP ECE level, and that's to be commended. Thank you for that. But thinking about our other learners too is important, and I love the idea of the giving them semester options in the humanities, because that's really getting them ready for college too.
Absolutely.
So-
Thank you. Yep. Board had something to do with that. Maybe a committee that you might be on? Maybe. We good? Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
Good evening. A year ago, just about this time, I was talking to you a little bit about a new program that we were getting off the ground and running, our Chippewa Valley Partnership. And so today I'm here to tell you a little bit about how that went. That is our 18 to 21-year-old transition program. So we started this year with a teacher, 2 students, 2 job coaches, and a speech pathologist that visited us weekly to support our communication skills, our pragmatic language work. The students worked 3 days a week in the depot in 2 local businesses. They had job coaches that were there to support their work, as well as track data, track progress, and be able to sort of link them to the supervisors on the job site. Both students were also supported by the program with minimum wage pay for their work. While both experiences this year were very successful, and both locations have asked for those students to come back. The students will come back this summer to do a little bit of summer work, but we will be changing their workplaces next year to give them as much exposure in the next couple of years to as many opportunities that are out there for them, so they really know what they would like to pursue the year that they turn 21. Additionally, they had memberships at Phys Ed Gym in New Milford, and they worked out 3 days a week, learning different routines. The first week they spent with the trainer at Phys Ed, along with one of our job coaches who really loves the gym environment and working out. And so they learned their cardio routines. Well, they didn't learn them. They built on them. Mr. Conway here with Personal Fitness had done a wonderful job getting our students ready to use cardio equipment and strength training equipment while they were here at Chippewa. But going off-site, to a new location, students were able to use cardio machines and strength training machines. And they had fitness logs, and they tracked their progress, and they had some choice. Again, talking a little bit about choice, I got to observe a couple weeks ago, getting their fitness logs together, and part of their routine before they go is to figure out what they're going to be working on. And it was strength training that day for the young lady working on her arms. It was strength training for the young man working on his legs. So it was nice to see that they could write down their exercises and what the weights were going to be. Just exciting there. Every Monday, they deposit their checks at a local bank where their families got them accounts. They go in, they deposit, they withdraw the funds that they need for the week for all their activities, and they balance what their money is. And then they also, on Monday, particularly after they take their trip to the bank, they go to the market, they buy food so that they can prepare a meal at the Legion Hall. The Legion allowed us to do some cooking there this year, so they did that every Monday. Fridays were set aside for community outings, and so at the start of the week, both students would research a local business they wanted to explore, and additionally, they'd also look for a restaurant that was nearby. And so they would have a trip to a business to learn a little bit about the business, and then additionally, they would find a restaurant nearby to have their lunch at and practice those skills in the community that are so important for their independence moving forward. They also participated, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 times this year, they were able to participate with local other transition programs. One from Bethel, they had a movie day with, and New Milford had a trivia day. So they've also gotten to get to know some other students in the area that are also participating in transition programs. This year, we were at 10 Titus Road, and we were We were lucky to have that space. A local gentleman, Jay Cassis, offered that space to us this past year. We're going to be moving to Town Hall this coming year. And we're going to actually be gaining 2 new students in our program. So our program will grow from 2 to 4. By mid-year next year, we'll have our 5th student coming down from Chippewa to get feet wet a little bit prior to fully starting there the year after. But we'll be in the Town Hall location. We'll have 3 students from Region 12 and additionally 1 student from Region 14. Region 14 came and came to our program and saw what our program, thought it was a good fit for one of their students. And so the district will be tuitioning into our 18 to 21-year-old program. And then that 4th student or our 5th student next year will come down mid-year, someone from the region here at Chippewa that will be just getting their feet wet a little bit before starting full time. So that's our program. I'm really pleased with how it got off the ground and running. Mrs. O'Neill, Betsy O'Neill, Tammy Beatty, Tracy Rebellard, Jen Shab really worked hard to make sure that it was seamless, as we've heard the word so many times tonight. To start a brand new program up, having never had one before, we experienced some we definitely experienced some bumps, and we expected that, but truly couldn't have imagined it going quite as well as it went this year, and very excited about what it can become next year. Any questions?
It sounds fabulous. How did the parents feel? I mean, it's new. It was a new program. Were they?
Yeah, so
happy?
very excited. The students come home exhausted every day. There's a lot. We're in the depot, so there's a lot of walking, and we didn't even think of so many of the benefits that came out of the walking. When we planned for work experiences and physical, phys ed kind of experiences and community experiences, we didn't really think about how much you just learn in the day-to-day of getting from one place to another, the crosswalks, the not that there's tons of traffic, but understanding your way around, and the independence and the packing for the gym bag and the materials that you need to get places. So parents were really pleased. Students were coming home pretty tired because there was a good amount of movement throughout the course of the day. And work experiences, while our students are lucky that we have many opportunities for them prior to leaving Chippewa, not quite as consistent. We generally, they had worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, 2+ hours each time, and just new for them to get used to. So parents were happy. All reports I've received have been just really glowing. And it's nice. I mean, I think there can be some additional components that we're looking into. It's hard to find a peer base. We hope to, when we go out to the gym, we hope to find some students their age, but there's not a great deal. So that is one component of the program we're still trying to look at. Are there ways for us to, access some local college campuses for a part of a day, maybe not once a week, but maybe once a month, maybe get up to a student union, an activity that's going on a college campus, because there are definitely those components that are missing. Because we do try to make sure that our students are with peers, same age peers. So many when we go out to work, everybody just almost seems the same age. When we all work together, nobody really thinks much about it. But I do think our students would benefit from some time with non-disabled peers their age.
I know it's state mandated. Are there not transitional programs at all of our surrounding districts, like Litchfield or?
No, they're not. So you don't have
Where-
to have your own. You can send students, as we have done in the past, you can send students to another local district. The drawback to that is it's not your program, so it's not exactly run
Right.
the way you'd like it to be.
I'm just trying to figure out where those students are.
So
that
there's
you
lots there. So New Milford has a program.
Okay.
Litchfield Hills Transitions Center. Their Winstead area has a program called Highlander.
Okay.
There's one opening on the Post campus next year. Bethel has a program. Newtown has a program. Watertown has a program, but they're mostly housed in their high schools.
Yeah.
We wanted to be off-site, so they understood that they finished their academic pieces here and they've moved on.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love the idea that you're moving to Washington Town Hall, and it certainly sounds like you've had such a wonderful embrace of the Washington town community for the program. I'm wondering if the new location will build on that. Will it give you more visibility and and more opportunities to connect with the community?
I think it definitely can. Yes, and we're excited about the move. Our space this year was excellent and helped us get off the ground and running, and that was so greatly appreciated. But I do think that yes, being a little bit more in the center of things will be great. Yes, I think we can build relationships within the town hall too, which will be nice.
Yeah, first I just want to applaud you. It sounds like a really robust and very real-world practical program. Oh, sorry. Can you not hear me? Good. A great real-world, like practical program for this cohort of students, which would be great for any cohort, but particularly here. And I've enjoyed getting updates. We've talked about it in the finance committee, just about your location and enrollment of students, and it's great that we're getting more for next year. And I'm really glad that we're able to offer it in the region. A random question I had about transportation. How time does their day start? How do they leave?
So they come to the high school on their regular high school bus, and they make a transfer. So they'll get off the bus. There's someone here just making sure the transfer goes well. So the students get on their regular old high school stop, jump on the bus, get here, transfer onto bus 10, take bus 10 down to the depot, get to the depot, got to their location around 7:40 in the morning. So their day's very similar to what it was here at Chippewa. Then they would start every day. They started with IEP work. So parts of their plan were developed. So both students weren't necessarily doing the same thing, but on a day you could see them coming in and getting their materials sort of figured out for the day, right? So they might have a Monday checklist, and they know that on Monday they go to the gym. They know that they aren't working. They know that they need to have wallets, purses, those kind of things. They need their ATM card. They need their ID. They need those kind of things packed away. So they have a chart that they come right in. They know what they're getting ready for the day. Then they'll do some IEP work. What I've gotten to see on Mondays is they may be deciding individually where they'd like to explore for Friday as an option. And that took a lot to be able to figure out a business they wanted to go and check out, but also a restaurant that is nearby and it's not in another spot in the state, learning how we're going to be using our transportation as well. It could be that they're working on IEP goals and objectives for their speech and language. So for communication, it could be that they're working on banking and budgeting. It could be lessons, a variety of things. So the first hour of the day tends to be a lesson, something that is developed from their IEP goals and objectives. And then most days, right around 9 o'clock, sort of things get moving a little bit before 9. Whether they're going to the gym, that's normally the first thing they'll do before they do other activities. Some days on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they stay back. There may be a physical component that day, like a walk, or we did try yoga down in Valley Spirit as well. So we've tried a couple of different things, but they'll do a little bit of, sometimes we've done volunteer work on Tuesday and Thursday if they don't go to the gym, because that's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing. And then they'll go to work from about 11 to about 1:30, and then find their way back to the hub. Our location, we just call it a hub because we don't spend the day there at all. It's just sort of a gathering place in the beginning of the day, and then a gathering place at the end of the day. And then that last half an hour is sort of a debrief on if there's anything that we need to talk about that happened at the work site or in preparation for the next day. There's some conversations around that. There may be some debrief with an individual student about something that may have needed to be addressed from the work environment. And our job coaches will help sort of do that work with Mrs. O'Neill. And then they get on the buses 2:12, and then they head back up here and get off 10 and get on their own buses and then go home.
So do they use public transport at all? Do they practice
So
that? Or?
So yes. So we have Kennedy Center comes up and can train our students in public transport. And so Kennedy Center did come up and work with students this year, yes.
Is that how they would get to like phys ed and back?
So that's not how we've gotten to phys ed and back
Okay,
right now. No, it's not necessarily. I do think that some students may be able to do that in the future, and we've done that in the past with other students when we had them at other transition programs and brought them back. We use Kennedy Center. It depends on their level of independence and
Right.
their safety on the busing.
Sure.
The bus and essentially Kennedy Center will tell us what they think based on the visits that they have and the practices that they do. But right now, transportation to get to work, we were lucky. Both students worked in the depot, so they walked.
Walk. Great.
Next year, we won't be as lucky. We'll have 4 students, and we really aren't picking jobs just because they're in the depot. We're gonna probably be on buses, but that's something that's budgeted for through the transition line.
Mhm.
Great, thanks. Are there any other questions? All right, great.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
And before we get into our video, I really want to commend our administrative team for leaning into problems this year. All of the successes that you had were because challenges were existing in your school. And rather than backing away, targeting something that was just the happy, anybody is good as when everything goes well. It's the moment that something is wrong that you really get to show your greatness. And I think when I look at everything that you showcased tonight, it was things that went wrong that you were figuring out. How do we bring out the best in our children? And I think that's what you showcased tonight. And thank you all for your work on that. Now I have the big job of hitting play. You were able to see in December, we did our mid-year. We did the beginning to mid-year and a review of what had happened this year. Well, now we're going to take you from mid-year to the end of the year. I don't even look at Ben jumps in action. any child says, when you ask, what did you do at school? They say nothing, they're lying. Yes, we're going to put that in. It's actually you got the unveiling, so it's actually private right now, which is why we had to pull up mine. So we're going to go public, but we felt that this is one in which to showcase it to you, knowing all of the things that you've allowed to happen in our school. It's nothing shy of spectacular. They are. Huh? I'm going to tell you, those moments where Don O'Leary may not be right here in front of us, that man is working hard behind the scenes to make certain it gets up here. We really wanted to get a picture of all of you with it. So it will be doing multiple stops, and I think here comes a little rocking chair as well. So I think the rocker we have to put on it, correct? Yes. At some point, we've got to get it into a car, so the rocking chair we don't want to. Were you okay if you want to do a quick little break and then we can do pictures, or do you want to? How do you want to do it?
Should we wait until are we getting close to the break where we have to, the tape break or no?
Huh?
Okay. Yeah. So we'll do that before we adjourn, but we'll try to get through the next little bit of our agenda. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Those were really wonderful. We're going to move on now to our action items. The first is consider and if appropriate approve the AP text for world government and European history, and we added as well the UConn ECE Econ text, and I think Michael's going to tell us about those.
So moved.
Sure. So thank you to Teresa and the humanities teachers that are going to be teaching these courses. Just to kind of walk you through it, there are two texts that were alluded to on your agenda. We'll start with those. AP American Government has a new text because it's a new course. And the name of the text is American Government, Stories of a Nation, and it is a College Board recommended textbook for that particular course. There is an online text as well that comes with the purchase of the texts, and we're looking at about approximately 25 textbooks for the one section that we're going to be teaching. The other course is actually not a new textbook. UConn ECE Foundations of Western Thought is a brand new course, but they're actually going to be using a text that we already have purchased and have been using for some time now in AP European History, I believe. And that textbook is called The Western Heritage by Kagan, Osment, Turner, and Frank, who are professors at Harvard and Yale, respectively. And the text covers a huge span of history. So right now in AP European history, they cover from 1300 to, I believe, the present day. I'm not sure if they get that far into modern history. But what ECE Foundations of Western Thought will be looking at would be pre-1300. That much I know. So that is the same textbook that they're going to be using, just looking at a different number of chapters and a different time frame, literally. The other new course that we're going to be offering next year, UConn ECE Economics, is going to be using a brand new textbook called Principles of Economics, 8th edition, by Mankiw. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right. He's a professor of economics at Harvard, and that is a UConn approved textbook. So all the ECE courses, any textbooks that we're teaching and we're using in the classroom have to be approved by UConn before they give their stamp to ECE credit being offered. So,
Michael, just to clarify, because I'm not sure if we're talking about 2 or 3. So there's AP American Gov, which is doing Story of a Nation.
American Gov is American Government Stories of a Nation, correct?
And then
UConn ECE Foundations of Western Thought is just simply using the same textbook which we already have.
for AP Euro.
Right.
Okay,
exactly.
but we'll be using, okay,
And then the
so,
last one is the Yukon ECE economics course, and that is a new course and a new textbook.
got it. So 2 new books, 3 classes. Got it.
Yes.
Jim?
I move that the board approve the adoption of these 2 books as presented by Michael.
Second.
All right, are there any other questions or discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstaining? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And those sound like some really excellent classes we're adding. All right, next we have consider and if appropriate approve HR service and support agreement with EdAdvance.
Okay. And I believe Nicole has shared with you, there's a hard copy in front of you regarding the proposal that has been put forth. As we've been doing work and our own internal audits regarding HR practices, continuity, making certain, looking at contract language and how we're operating, there's a conversation with us and 2 other districts as far as bringing someone in to help support our HR practices and really start to standardize some of the things we need to do, file reviews, bring in an audit. And what EdAdvance has done is they have created a proposal in which we would actually have someone for an entire year for 2 days a week who would come in, not only do an audit, work on standardizing our hiring practices, take a look to make certain we're looking at things of how are we onboarding. What happens when somebody has resigned their position? Do we have standard practices in place? So that way we can make certain that we are in compliance with what are our labor laws, we are in compliance with mandates that have come down, and that our files are looking to code, so to say. So this is something that when we've looked at, we've come across some things that have been, we've been doing spot checks and have needed to correct some things. And so at this time, what we'd like to do is be able to come up with a system, and I think we need support in creating that system for HR right now. This is not something that we need to hire a person full-time. This is not something that we even see is a long-term. I think that with a year of support, we'd be able to have everything standardized. Additionally, we'd be able to make certain that how are we hiring in our practices. I know that's a lot of time out of our administrators' days as well, and making certain that we're doing it properly so we don't run into issues during our hiring process either.
Yeah, I want to particularly say to the superintendent that I appreciate the fact that you've shared this burden with a number of towns that are involved in this. I think this is really a good way to go, and it avoids our taking the full cost of it, and at the same time, we'll get the benefit we need. I think this is terrific, and I'm glad to see the administration pushing this, and I'm very glad to hear the business manager is 100% behind it, and I think that's the way to go.
I do also want to share, and I apologize, I haven't earlier. In our conversation with EdAdvance, one of our concerns early on was what happens if one of the other districts backs out, and they have said our cost does not change. At that point, that burden goes on to EdAdvance. If it is not working out, and we find that the person they have hired is not working for us, we have the ability to exit. We will be meeting with them regularly because they will be in charge of supervision of this person as it is their hire. However, for us, we benefit from the services that it provides.
John?
My only concern would be where the dollars are going to come out of the budget for these things. And let's back up to the non-certified staff raises. Were those dollars in the budget? They were. Okay, so, but I think I know I had a conversation with you earlier, and I don't think the rest of the board heard. The HR service is going to be about approximately 40,000. Yeah, okay, and the food service is about 15,000. So that's 55,000. Where is that in the budget?
I'm sorry.
So to answer that, there's two different answers to that question. The food service contract, which we'll table for now since we aren't talking about that yet. When we projected salary and benefit costs in February at the time our budget was prepared and the budget that was passed, we've since started to make some of the hirings that were reflected in those budget numbers. And there's been shifts with what we've been able to contract new employees with compared to what was budgeted. So there's room in our budget, our salary line budget items to fund the HR position. Do you want me to talk about food service now, or do you want to do one at a time?
Let's wait for food service. Yeah, let's do that next. Are there any other questions? Lisa?
So currently, we don't have an HR, right? Is that correct? And would this help you because you've spent a lot of time this past year with the comings and goings of staff? So would this help alleviate some of your duties with that?
That's part of it, but I think that we really need process and procedures in place. I
Okay.
think when we've looked at certain things, timing in which things have happened, we really want to make certain we're in compliance with all the laws that govern
Okay.
labor. And I think that this is one where, in order to get ourselves into a proper system, in order to make certain we have routines and procedures in place,
Okay.
having help is
So
definitely
this person will be helping write all of that. And
correct.
Okay.
In doing file reviews, the expectation is they would do a full audit
okay.
of our process, our files, come up with an HR hiring manual for us, as well as determining how are we currently onboarding, how are we exiting people. I will tell you right now, we know that we have emails that haven't been deactivated,
Okay.
or how are things getting off the website to make certain that we've advertised to the public we have a new person in place. I think it took a while before we went public with Nicole.
Right.
So she, getting more efficient when some of those things can happen when we have somebody who looks at it in its totality and say, here's the process it should happen.
So this would be for the 2019-2020 year.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Michael?
Megan, just a question. I know on the proposal it mentions that the human resource specialist would be reporting and supervised by the Advanced Director of Personnel and Human Resources. Who would be their Region 12 supervisor? You? And would you foresee it? I know that they're 40% of their time approximately would be dedicated to Region 12 issues and needs. Would you foresee that as representing a day, a part of each day? I mean, how would you see their day being allotted?
In conversation with the two other districts, what we talked about was during the summer, they start off with a chunk of time at each one of the districts. So I'd get them for a full week, and then the others would get the full week, and then to turn around and then have what are regular expectations, which are 2 days a week. We had the conversation of, my first statement is, well, I don't want Mondays. We know what that looks like. And so we've actually been able to talk about what does that look like when you say there's 20 work days a month. How does that parcel out in being able to work with the other superintendents? We've set up at this time, in the event we do enter into this contract, regular meetings with Ed Advance, making certain that that communication is working. As I've said to the other two districts, if they start to impede upon our times, I have no doubt at some point I will send an email in a day that is not Region 12's day.
Yeah.
And also recognizing that if there's an emergency or a public relations nightmare in one of the other districts, that we'd give that time, being flexible with it. However, we've had a very open conversation to say, but if at any point it impedes upon our time, that we would not incur the cost. So anything that is lost for our time would be something that is balanced out by Ed Advance. So we certainly did have this conversation. If it was two districts I found weren't workable, we probably wouldn't enter into this, but We've had a lot of conversations as far as what's going to happen. What happens if it doesn't work out for them? What happens if I like them, they don't? What happens if I don't like them? How often were you going to have these meetings? And really, at the point of this is really Ed Advance taking a chance on hiring someone. It takes away some of the strain of us.
I think it's a wonderful idea myself. I'm just wondering, other than you as kind of the daily contact person with the specialist, or every other day, depending on when our days are, how much time would you see the HR specialist spending with the administration, having contact with teachers? Would that be rare? Would that be for the administration, for example? Would you see that being professional development for the administration side with the HR specialist? I mean, how are you envisioning their interaction with other staff?
I think that's really going to depend on once we get the system in place. I think it's important. They're the people who are operating the hiring system as well. So it will be important once we have a manual and procedures of how onboarding happens, and them knowing what is their role in that. There are certain things that once they turn it over to me, how that process works and what are the expectations. And that's something that as they're setting up our system will be important, that they're also communicating that system to the people who will be operating in it. So there certainly will be time that's allotted, but I think early on, it's the audit. Early on, it's getting the procedures in. There's going to be a lot of time just going through and cleaning up and finding out how do we get efficiencies in what we're currently doing and making certain we're right with what we're currently doing.
Greg?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve the HR service and support agreement with Ed Advance as presented in the written materials and as supplemented by the superintendent's presentation.
Second.
All right. Are there any further questions or discussion? I just wanted to add that I'm fully in support of this. I think it is kind of miraculous that we've made it this far without an HR person. It is one of the challenges in a small district. Each of our administrators wears so many hats, and there have been so many additional requirements made on their time that HR is a challenge to make sure. And it's also a challenge to stay up to date. If it's not your specialty, education is their specialties, and they're staying up to date with the latest learning and the requirements from the state. Staying up on hiring practice is not necessarily a priority. So I'm thrilled. I'm glad it's through Ed Advance. I think the partnership is very beneficial, and they have a lot of experience in hiring. They're a very large organization. So if this person doesn't work, they'll find somebody else. I'm sure they will. They're a wonderful resource. I just would say that avoiding one lawsuit will pay for this 10 times over. So I think it's worth finding the money. And I also think that it'll be interesting. I can see needing these kinds of services beyond just a year, but maybe not quite as much time. And so maybe there will be some other ways to meet the needs, because laws are always changing, procedures need following, whether it's just a little bit of help in the busy hiring time over the summer, or advice, or maybe even a la carte sort of as needed arrangement with that advance. But you won't, that'll be for next year. But at least getting a year of advice and help, I think, is fabulous. So, all right. No, we didn't. No other comments? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Anyone abstaining? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, I saw the thing about, where are we? How much time? 1 minute. Time to take a break. Back into session. We didn't lose anybody. Okay. Oh, Nicole's not. It seems emptier. She's not back. Okay. Well, and we need her for the next agenda item. So it's the next item on the agenda, 11C, consider and if appropriate, approve food service consulting agreement with Ed Advance. Were you going to start?
I can start while you want to take it over? Or, Nicole has done a lot of work with Ed Advance and figuring out some of the efficiencies we can gain within our cafeteria. We've talked a lot about, especially during budget time, regarding some of the loss out of our cafeteria. And so at this time, I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Okay, so what we'd like to do is partner with Ed Advance and their food service department to allow us to think about how we do our food service differently. So they would be consultants. We need innovation in our food service department. We need fresh ideas, new menu offerings. We need to sell more, and we need to market ourselves differently. So Ed Advance's role would be to train our staff in new and different ways and ideas, because, pardon the pun, but some of the stuff we're doing has become stale. So we have also actually looked at, I've looked at the food service operations from several different angles. Our a la carte offerings could be better. They could be priced better. We could offer a better product. We could get them from better suppliers. It's a lot of different changes that need to be made within the entire operation to improve it. And it's not something that the staff on hand has time to do while they're producing meals, breakfast and lunch. So Ed Advance has already visited us actually twice. They've observed our entire operation while it was running. They've been to all 3 of our elementary schools, taken a tour, looked at our facilities. One of the goals we would like to look at, not for this year, but for future years, is how we get food service into our elementary schools. They have ideas for that. The production would be done here. But we need to fix the operation within this building before we can push it out. So the goal this year is to get the operation here up and running smoothly with offerings that are attractive to people, to increase production. And the cost of the service from Ed Advance, the goal would be to produce between 100 to 120 more meals per day in the form of lunch. We do very low numbers right now. In order to cover the cost of this Ed Advance contract, we would only need to sell an additional 25 meals per day. So it's my opinion that this program will pay for itself nearly immediately. And it will also help to turn around the deficit that this program has been running for a number of years. And it will help train our staff to keep it running. This isn't a permanent consultantship. It is something that we'll do for a year or two to get the program up and running the way we need it up and running, get the food into our elementary schools, and then continue to have a profitable, attractive, marketable program running.
Thank you. Yes, Michael?
So I want to start with saying thank you, 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 because to both you and to Megan, because this is something that I know I've been personally, as a board member, have been asking about, wondering about, emailing about, having conversations about, but often felt like a voice crying in the wilderness. And I could tell other board members, if you don't have children at the school, maybe you're not seeing what the daily operations on the food service end would be like. It needs major work. Students, just because they're students doesn't mean they're not educated consumers. And the best way to know whether we have a good product or not is the numbers. And Nicole's telling us that the numbers are telling us that they don't like the food, that they find the food of poor quality, of poor nutritional value. I mean, chicken nuggets as an option for a student in 2019 is not a great option for most students. They're very, very health conscious. We're teaching them to be health conscious in our curriculum. And so they're walking out of health class, for example, and into the cafeteria and shaking their heads. And as a parent, how I'm seeing it is, I don't want to eat that food. Could you pack me lunch? And I'd love for that to change.
Anyone else? I just wanted to say that I appreciate this effort, and I really hope it's successful, because even though my children did not partake in the lunch program, I know it's really important that we offer one, especially for our students who qualify for free and reduced. So anything we can do to turn the program around and decrease that deficit is a plus. So I applaud the effort, and I really hope it's successful. And I just wanted to add that as you're working on the whole PR and new ideas, I think one thing that's slightly unique in our district is that we don't have a lunch program in the elementaries. So we're in the habit of packing lunch. And so then they come up here. I don't remember there being very much education to me as the parent about what the hot lunch program provided and how it worked. I was never sold on it. And I knew I wanted to make healthy choices for my child. And the only way I could control what they ate is if I packed it. So if I felt more comfortable knowing that they had healthy options in the lunchroom, I might have bought into the program more than I did. So I think because they're not coming through the elementaries involved, that we're already we're already starting behind. So I hope it's successful. Greg?
I mean, I really don't see where we have a choice but to have a good food lunch program, especially since we're going to create an agri-science program with a full commercial kitchen teaching food science. We can't be serving something down the hall. Also, you've got 40 odd or 30 odd kids coming into the building, and eventually you're going to have 4 times that, maybe even more, who are coming in from the outside, and that's your group that you want to have come in and see that, oh, gee, the food here is pretty good, as opposed to, oh, God.
Well, and they're probably used to having lunch in it. They're all coming from bigger schools. Most of them. Alan?
This may seem like a minor point and probably something that is going to be covered, but one of my sons is a milk drinker, and he says that by and large, nobody drinks the milk because it's either right before or right at the expiration date. So we might look into a vendor who supplies fresher milk. Might be helpful too.
Thank you for sharing that.
All right. So do we have, I don't remember, was that in our packet? Do we? Okay. We had the cost.
Yeah. 15,000. I'll make a motion. Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
I move to approve the food service consulting agreement with Ed Advance.
All right. Any other discussion? Any further questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Any abstain? All right. The motion passes. Thank you very much. All right. That was the last agenda item before we move into executive session. Your whole thing's going to be an executive session, huh? Whole thing. Whole thing. All right, I guess so. Yeah. No, not to adjourn, to move into executive session.
Another couple hours.
Well played, Jim.
I move we go into executive session to deal with the superintendent's year-end evaluation.
Deal with it. Just gonna have to deal with it.
No, I said deal with. I meant to say for the purpose of it. Discuss it. I amended motion, please. Didn't mean it that way.